Today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, HelloFresh. Hello and welcome to the Broken Sword. Today we are looking at the great eagles of Middle-earth.
Build me a home worthy of Mordor.
The eagles, the messengers of the king of the Valar Manwë, the great birds that watch over Middle-earth. The great eagles are seen several times throughout Tolkien's works. Some see them as great majestic creatures, some see them as a get-out-of-jail-free card, but everyone is allowed to think whatever they wish, as it does not stop some of the outstanding achievements that they have helped with. What I plan today though is to learn a bit more about them, where they come from, what they have done in their time, and maybe just what their end fate was. So only one place really makes sense to start, which of course is at the beginning. However, it is actually pretty hard to know when their exact origin starts. The eagles have existed since some of the earliest days. Although their precise lifespan has never been confirmed, we do know that they live long lives. We get this idea since two of the great eagles, Gwaihir and Landroval, were said to have helped Thorondor rescue Beren and Luthien back in the First Age, being year 466. And then they were both still alive at the time of the War of the Ring in the Third Age, being the year 3019. That would make them over 6,500 years old. If we go from the earliest point, we do know, though, how they were used as messengers of the Valar Manwë. And quickly for those of you who are unsure, Manwë was the king of the Valar and the king of Arda, and even the brother of Melkor of all beings. He was one of the greatest of the Ainur in his authority, but not the strongest in power. He was also the ruler of the winds, airs, and birds, hence his relationship with the eagles. Although initially, the eagles appeared to live in Valinor with Manwë, he would send them to Middle-earth from Valinor to keep an eye on the exiled Noldor and his brother Melkor. Albeit it is unclear if all of the eagles were sent, or some did in fact remain in Valinor with him as well. Of the eagles that were sent, the greatest was the one named Thorondor. This eagle was called the Lord of the Eagles, and was so large that its wingspan would cover over 50 meters in length, so about half the size of a football pitch. Thorondor would come to build its eyrie, being its large nest atop the mountain of Thangorodrim, therefore also above Melkor's fortress of Angband. Over time the eagles would play a significant part in helping the peoples of Middle-earth, starting with Thorondor helping Fingon rescue Maithros from Thangorodrim. As well as this, you have the others of the great eagles, Gwaihir and Landroval, regaining Beren and Luthien, also away from Thangorodrim, after the end of their quest for the Silmaril. As time would pass though, they would move their nests to the mountains around where Gondolin was hidden. This mountain range was named Chrysaegrim, and was in the north of Beleriand, south of the city of Gondolin, and north of the empty land of Dimbar. These eagles became friends with Turgon, king of Gondolin, and helped protect the city from being discovered. They scared off spies that attempted to scale the mountains, they delivered news, and they generally just kept watch. It was all thanks to the eagles that Gondolin managed to stay safe and hidden for as long as it did. Even when Gondolin would finally fall, Thorondor did what he could and helped protect the escaping fugitives from the ambush so that they could make it to safety. Now, pause. Before we continue, I would like to take this time to thank our sponsor for today, HelloFresh. HelloFresh is something that I have used myself, so I was more than happy to have them on board. Their meals are fantastic. Using them means you can have the joy of a home-cooked meal every single day if you wish. And if you are like me and you like to cook together with your partner and or your kids, then this is such a great and simple way to bond with them. As well, again, if you're anything like me and you'd love to be a hobbit, then your food must be important to you, and good food can make all of the difference. So whether you want to eat it for breakfast, second breakfast, 11's, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, or even supper, you will not be disappointed. HelloFresh has over 50 weekly menu and market items to choose from, and you can experiment and find your favourites from there. So not only will receiving HelloFresh week after week save you the stress of coming home and trying to pick something to eat, it will save you time, it will save you money, and all while giving you a greater, healthier lifestyle. So if you use my link or go to hellofresh.com and use code POGBrokenSword16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes plus free shipping. With the speed of a great eagle, the produce will get from the farm to your doorstep to keep everything at peak freshness. 20-minute meal times, unbeatable value for money, easy cleanup. It has taken a stress out of my life, so I know it could do the same for you. I mean, if you work 10 hours at an office, if you have children to look after at home, or if you just struggle for ideas, there is not one thing that HelloFresh does not help with. So remember, once again, use my link or go to hellofresh.com and use POG Broken Sword 16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes plus free shipping. I thank you again. Now back to the Eagles, especially Thorondor at this point, as he would continue to help the peoples of Middle-earth in the coming times. It is said, after all, that they had no love for Malkor due to Malkor capturing and torturing some of their kind to try and learn the secrets of flight. The Eagles never forgave him for this, and this is likely how Malkor found the way to twist his initial dragons, like that of Glaurung, into those that could fly, like that of Ancalagon the Black. This is probably how Sauron would also learn the information to breed the fell beasts later on, being the ones that the Nazgul would ride upon. But as for their helping the peoples, for example, when Fingolfin would ride to Angband alone to challenge Malkor, now known almost solely as Morgoth, to single combat, he would fall at his hands, and Thorondor would be the one to come and wound Morgoth's face, which would give him enough time to recover and escape with Fingolfin's body, carrying him to Fingon, who would then bury him. And then later too, as the War of Wrath would be coming to its climax, all the Eagles would unite under Thorondor and the half-elf Eärendil. But Eärendil came, shining with white flame, and about Vingalot were gathered all the great birds of heaven, and Thorondor was their captain, and there was battle in the air all the day and through a dark night of doubt. Before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of the dragon host, and cast him from the sky, and he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. Then the sun rose, and the host of the Valar prevailed, and well nigh all the dragons were destroyed, and all the pits of Morgoth were broken and unroofed, and the might of the Valar descended into the deeps of the earth. Thorondor would not be mentioned again after the War of Wrath, so his end fate is unknown. It would be surprising if he died during this battle, as it is never mentioned, especially as a great eagle with a 55-meter wingspan falling would be very hard to miss. My assumption, and I stress this is just my personal thoughts, is that most likely he returned to Manwë after the war, since he completed so many great deeds and was therefore rewarded to see out his life with peace back in Valinor. But I would also be curious to know if you have other ideas, so please let me know in the comment section below if you have different thoughts of Thorondor's fate. But as for the rest of them, as the Second Age came to Middle-earth, the Eagles had found new places to settle their eyries. The first was in Númenor above the king's house in Armenelos. This was important as it was the building that was completed simultaneously as the coronation of Elros, thus signifying the beginning of that great kingdom. However, this one would only remain here for a short time, as when Tar and Calimon became king of the Númenóreans, many of the peoples there would become very hostile towards the Valar. The Númenóreans came to believe that the 3 eagles they saw were sent to be witnesses of Manwë, and when anyone would approach the peak of the sacred mountain at the centre of Númenor, called Meneltarma, they would appear and stay in the sky during the prayers of worship to Eru, known as the 3 prayers. So eventually they would become most unwelcomed. And in fact, as a cool side fact here, when Manwë was angered and wanted to either reason with, or perhaps wanted to threaten the people of Númenor, he sent eagle-shaped storm clouds over the land, and these were known by the name of the Eagles of the Lords of the West. And out of the west there would come at times a great cloud in the evening, shaped, as it were, an eagle, with pinions spread to the north and the south, and slowly it would loom up, blotting out the sunset, and then uttermost night would fall upon Númenor. And some of the eagles bore lightning beneath their wings, and thunder echoed between sea and cloud. Then men grew afraid. "Behold the eagles of the Lords of the West," they cried. "The eagles of Manwë are come upon Númenor," and they fell upon their faces. Then some few would repent for a season, but others hardened their hearts, and they shook their fists at heaven, saying, "The Lords of the West have plotted against us. They strike first, the next blow shall be ours." These words the king himself spoke, but they were devised by Sauron. And the other location that was known where the eagles set up an eyrie was in the north of Númenor, on a mountain called Sorontil, which was in fact the only other named mountain on Numenor apart from that of Meneltarma. But now anyway, the time would continue, Numenor would be crushed under the waves of the sea, and the Third Age of Middle-earth would come. The Eagles became less involved. They would end up setting up a new home located near to the high pass that led out of Rivendell, being in the northern sections of the Misty Mountains. Here they would be located basically on top of what is Goblin Town that we witness in The Hobbit, in the Adventures of Bilbo Baggins, and they'd like to attack and disrupt any plans of these goblins when they try to make it outside of their caves. The Eagles would also become the friends of the elves in Rivendell, as well as with a couple of the Astari sent to Middle-earth, being firstly with Radagast the Brown, who they regularly gave the news to about the orcs and the movements of evil things in that land, and as well later, Gandalf the Grey. And as well, as I mentioned a moment ago, these Eagles would be the ones that would rescue Thorin and his company after they escaped from Goblin Town during the events of The Hobbit, which also includes Bilbo escaping from Gollum, and after that, they carried them off to the Carrock. As the days would pass after this, these Eagles would come to see many more goblins gather all around the mountains near them, so the Eagles gathered and made their way to Erebor, thus taking part in the Battle of the Five Armies, and swinging the battle in the favour of the dwarves, men and elves against the goblins and wargs. From this time, Gwaihir would go from being more of a follower of Thorondor to being one of, if not the greatest eagle of this age. He would always be bringing news of the orcs and wolves, the movements of the Nazgul, or even of Gollum's escape from Mirkwood. It is this that leads him to travel to Isengard to pass the message on to Saruman and Gandalf, except when he does this, he finds that Gandalf has been imprisoned on the peak of Orthanc, so instead he rescues him and then takes him to Edoras, where Gandalf can end up with Shadowfax. Once more, it was Gwaihir who finds Gandalf after this time being after his battle with the Balrog at the peak of Celebdil, which was one of the 3 peaks above Khazad-dûm, and from here, Gwaihir carried Gandalf to Galadriel in Lothlorien after his spirit had left his body but then was sent back as Gandalf the White. Gwaihir and the other Eagles would also appear again at the climax of the War of the Ring, during the Battle of the Morannon, where they came to help to counter against the Nazgul on their fell beasts, helping the men of the West, and then, when the One Ring had finally fallen into the lava, 3 of the Eagles went to the slopes of Mount Doom to recover the Ring-bearers, Samwise Gamgee and Frodo Baggins, after they had completed their mission. There came Gwaihir the Windlord, and Landroval his brother, greatest of all the Eagles of the North, mightiest of the descendants of old Thorondor, who built his eyries in the inaccessible peaks of the encircling mountains when Middle-earth was young. Behind them in long swift lines came all their vassals from the northern mountains, speeding on a gathering wind. Straight down upon the Nazgul they bore, stooping suddenly out of the high airs, and the rush of their wide wings as they passed over was like a gale. Now before I finish, there is actually something else I would like to address. Throughout the stories of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, there is mention of both the Great Eagle and also of Gwaihir. A question that can be brought up is, are these 2 eagles the same eagle? Or completely different ones, as many people have just assumed they are the same being. It is said that once, the Great Eagle had suffered a poisonous wound, but Gandalf was the one to come across him, rescue him, and save his life, which is what led then to the friendship between Gandalf and the Eagles. Meaning, with Gwaihir being the one to save Gandalf a couple of times, they are kind of often believed just to have been the same one. However, there are also times that point to this not being true as well. The Lord of the Eagles is described as having wore a gold crown and his 15 chieftains' golden collars, and this is in The Hobbit by Bilbo. However, in The Lord of the Rings, there is no mention of a crown of any sort, albeit there's no mention of any golden collars either. And also in the Field of Cormallen chapter, when Gwaihir lands in front of Gandalf after they realise the ring has been destroyed, Gandalf says to him, "Twice you have borne me, Gwaihir my friend. Thrice shall pay for all, if you are willing." So those 2 times would be saving him from Orthanc, and then from carrying him from Zirig-Zigil, with the 3rd now being to save Frodo and Sam. Meaning, if the Great Eagle was the same, it should have been more, as the times from The Hobbit would not have just been forgotten. So, although it is not a question that I imagine comes up very often at all, I thought it could be a fun one to address. It makes it sometimes appear that there could be a greater eagle at the head of Gwaihir and Landroval, almost like Thorondor, even though he's not supposed to be there anymore. Or perhaps it is just mixing up this same eagle over a few different events. But to be fair, I'd be curious to know what you all think. Do you believe that they are in fact meant to be the same eagle? Or do you think that it was perhaps just Tolkien forgot a thing or two that he had written before? I mean, it wouldn't be the first time he did this, so you never know. Or do you just believe that they are intentionally completely different eagles, and the eagles being more of a mystery, we just don't know enough about them? Let me know all of your thoughts and comments about this. But so there we have it, a look at the great eagles. The eagles were majestic creatures of the Valar Manwë and served him greatly throughout their time, as well as constantly helping the free peoples of Middle-earth as well. They are legendary birds who constantly make a big difference to the outcomes of many events throughout Tolkien's work. And to be fair, it will be interesting to witness if we get to see anything of these great eagles in the Rings of Power show perhaps. And yes, by the way, I have kind of purposely avoided that one obvious question that will always get asked, and I'll keep avoiding it now. Sadly though, we do not know the end fate of the eagles really. Thorondor has no more mentions after the First Age, and those that are mentioned from the Lord of the Rings have no more mention after that story. I personally would just assume, with the departure of the magical races and the godly evils from Middle-earth, their job was just done and they were allowed to return back to Manwë to live a far more peaceful and missionless life. You can't say they wouldn't have deserved it, it's just a shame that we never know for sure. So I hope you all enjoyed this video for today, but now it is time for my question for you all today, and that is, do you think they could have really just flown the eagles to more... Nah, just kidding, not going to ask that one, here's my real question. What do you think was the end fate of all of the great eagles? Do you think they returned to Manwë? Was some like Thorondor possibly slain in the War of Wrath or other battles? Or perhaps something else entirely? Please let me know all of your thoughts, opinions and theories on this in the comment section below. And remember everyone, use my link or go to hellofresh.com and use code POGBrokenSword16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes plus free shipping, so you can eat like they do in the Shire. And now firstly, just to finish off, I'd like to quickly mention our other channels that will all be linked in the description below if you'd like to check them out, and also to shout out our patrons. Firstly, our Divine Power tier members of Kevin, Abram and Matt, you are all just awesome, and a big thanks to our Fire Demon tier members of Nashith, Denversteel and Gregory, and also I cannot forget the Wizards staff tier members of John, Andrew, Bill and Evil Chameleon to go with them. Every single one of you is a true legend of the Brohirrim. Finally, if you have managed to reach the very end of this video with me today and you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon too so that you can be notified of all future uploads. Why not drop a like on the video as well, and if you really enjoyed it, please give it a share so other people can view it too. So, thank you once more if you have reached the very end of this video with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.